What's up, you guys? Tristan here, Ingram Orchids and More. We're back today with another video for you guys. So today's going to be a little bit something different than orchids. Today's going to be the more in Ingram Orchids and More. So here in front of us we have a ant plant, or what a lot of people call ant plants. There are a couple different genre of plants that go by the name of ant plant that look very similar. This one in front of us here is Hydnophytum moseleyanum. There's also Myrmecodia, that's very similar looking, but this genus is Hydnophytum, and for all intents and purposes you're going to treat them just about the same. But this guy here is in desperate need of a repot. They are epiphytes just like orchids, and so we tend to grow them in a epiphytic mix. I'm not going to claim to be an expert on this because this is actually the only one, well, one of two that I have now. I had this one and a bunch of other ones as a seedling, a community pot of little, teeny tiny little seedlings once upon a time that a friend gave to me, and I grew a lot of them up, and most of them I gave away as gifts over the years, and I've only kept two for myself. One of them is upstairs. I just repotted it, and we're gonna bring y'all along for the repotting session of this one. I'm gonna try and use this aquatic, this aquaculture basket. I think these are meant for like water lilies and stuff that you put in ponds. You sit this, your aquatic plants in here or whatever to hold the root system. But they work really well for certain orchids, or in this case, an ant plant, which is also an epiphyte. And they call them ant plants because inside here, if you were to take a section of this, cut this in half, you would see where all these holes are. It forms little chambers on the inside. It makes a home for ants. So their natural way of growing is to be up in the trees and provide these little homes for ant colonies. And the ants, in exchange for having a home and a safe place to live, they protect the plant from herbivores or anything that would try and damage the plant. Now, I unfortunately have not been lucky enough to get an ant colony to live in my plant here, though the buddy who gave me the seedlings of this has some big ones of this, and his does have an ant colony living in it. I just have not been fortunate enough to get one to live, probably because we spray for bugs just around the house, and occasionally we spray the plants for bugs too. That's probably deterred any ants from moving in, but it grows all the same. I don't treat this plant much differently than I treat the orchids. It lives on a bench over here in the low light section next to the lanai cage, the door of the lanai cage. So it gets quite a bit of afternoon filtered light, but it's not extremely bright. I don't think these like a ton of light, but they don't want deep shade either, because it is an epiphyte. They're going to be up in the canopy. When you get to this point, they have this big bulbous swollen base for the ants to live in, but that also comes at a cost of eventually you get to the edge of the pot and it starts to choke itself off. There's nowhere for water and nutrients to run into the root zone, and so the plant eventually starts to strangle itself. And so now at this size, it would be more appropriate to get it into something that's a little bit more open, like a wooden basket or a plastic basket. You can grow them in pots for the first couple years, but after this they start to grow exponentially large, and it'll be better if you have at least some amount of openness around the roots, so for water and nutrients and everything to get in there. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna set y'all up, and I'm gonna try and separate this plant from this pot, because I'd like to keep this pot, just cook it or bleach it and reuse it for something else, but if we have to, we'll break it, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. All right, so here you can see we have our ant plants quite large. So what I'm gonna do is try and just press it up and out of the pot as easily as I can without damaging it. The first one that I did off camera, I did end up dropping it, and it landed on its bulbous base here and damaged it quite a bit, but I think it'll be okay. So I just don't want to damage it. This is pretty hard to the touch, but if you bang it, it will damage it. It's soft underneath. See if I can do this on camera without making myself look like a... Oh, I was gonna say make myself look like an idiot, but came right out. So there you go, folks. You can see it does have quite a lot of roots. Hopefully y'all can see that. So they're not like orchid roots, you know, it is a flowering plant, but it has just a more natural looking root system. You know, it's not real woody like some terrestrial plants, but it's not got a very thick velamen like orchids do either, and they're kind of spongy. But it looks like what I had this in was a mixture of probably sand, tree fern fiber, and I think the last one had bark mix, like just my standard orchid potting bark mix, and it looks like there could be some cypress pieces in here too. I'm not going to do that today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put lava rock in the bottom of the basket to line it, and then I'm going to add just an orchid bark mix, which is orchiata, perlite, expanded clay pellets, and charcoal. That's what's going to be our mix today. I would add tree fern for more moisture retention, but I am getting low on tree fern, and I don't want to just use all what's left of my tree fern on this guy. As cool as it is, I'd rather save that for an orchid or something like that. So we're just going to use what we have. We have our potting mix. You could probably use some moss thrown in there, some sphagnum moss. I'm going to choose not to do that. We'll see if that is a mistake down the road in regards to keeping this plant wet enough. But we're going to learn together. Like I said, I'm not an expert on ant plants. This is the only species I've grown, but so far this thing has grown phenomenally. It's, you know, it's been no hassle at all. So we're going to just keep going, and hopefully it works. Just set that guy down here. Sorry about the noise. The neighbors their lawn service is mowing at the moment, so nothing I can do about that. So we're gonna get our red lava rock, good old trusty red lava rock. Actually, let me set this down. I don't want a whole lot because I don't want it to be too dry of a mix, but I want it to be in the bottom of the pot to keep this heavy, because I usually don't hang this. I usually like to keep these on a little table, and so I want it to be not so top heavy, so we're going to do a rock for the weight. And in this case, you do probably want to make sure that you pot these a little high. You don't want this to sit too low, because the crown here, where the root crown, you know, this is where the base expands the most, is right at the root collar, and it's going to expand, you know, just parallel with the media. So if you put it too low, it's going to run into the edge of your basket or pot or whatever, and it's going to be cramped. So I like to keep them, you know, right about level with the surface, so that eventually when it does expand to the edge, it could just kind of grow over it. I don't know how big they'll get, so that'll just be something to see down the road. We may end up having to repot this again in a couple years, but that'll be a problem for then. And this is going to use quite a lot of bark mix, so I'm just going to go in and add it to the edges. Uh-oh, dropping media everywhere. So it's going to be difficult to do this one-handed, but I'm going to try and make sure that this is center and just add our bark mix around the edges. Pack it in tight, not too tight. Like I said, this is a very free draining mix. In the past, I've found that, you know, a mix that's like even a cacti and succulent mix with like a peat base, if you add bark and other stuff to break up the to break the media up so it's not so terrestrial, that'll work just fine as well. but I'm just going with the bark mix, like I said, because that's what I have on hand. Make a big mess, but I find that shaking the pot while holding the plant is usually the best way to pack the media into place so that everything falls into place and packs a little bit nicer. A big mess here. And you're asking probably, well, do I need to excavate all the old media that was in the root ball? Since I didn't do that, am I worried about that? Not really. I've never noticed it to be an issue with these plants before. That being said, it's possible that that root ball could kind of get yucky and cause root rot. But I've never had one of these rot or die on me for, either due to disease or, old media. And so, I don't know, maybe I've been lucky, but I found that just, taking the whole root ball and just adding more media seems to be the easy and better method for me. But like I said, I am not an expert. This is the only type of ant plant that I've grown so far. I might try other species in the future, but it's worked so far, so I'm going to keep doing it. And one thing, if you do a bark mix like this and you find later on down the road that it's not holding enough water for you, what you could do is get like a bag of play sand or multi-purpose sand, something that's, just not got a whole lot of contaminants in it, and you could just sprinkle some sand, wash it in, sprinkle some sand around the edges, wash it into the media, or even break up some peat moss, sphagnum peat moss, sift it and make sure you got just real fine pieces and wash it into the media to kind of take up some of the air spaces, the gaps in the media where all the air is. That can help, create a denser media that will stay a little bit wetter over time, but hopefully this will be fun. Short and simple, wasn't too hard, not much to it. I got it sitting a little high. There's some of the root ball exposed, but that's okay. We'll water this in, get all the dust out of it. But here you go. And I did want to show y'all, since they are blooming right now, if you're not paying attention, you'll never know these things flower. You have these teeny tiny little white flowers on them. I assume the ants that naturally are associated with it, they must be their pollinators, presumably. I'm just taking a guess here. But whenever you get one of these pollinated, it just turns into like this little reddish orange berry, and that's the little seed pod. And it doesn't take very long, and if you blink, you'll miss it. But that's the flower for the plant. So you can see here all the little holes. It looks so alien. I do occasionally in the summer get some of this leaf spot. I'm not sure if that's just due to heat stress or too much water on the leaves, but it doesn't seem to affect it too much. It gets sprayed. When I spray band rod or any other fungicide on the collection, I spray this too. It is a plant, it's going to be susceptible to diseases, but I have found them to be pretty resistant so far. They do not need any more care than what an orchid needs, and half the time I forget that they're there and they grow just fine. But that being said, they do get orchid fertilizer quite often. I don't know if that is an appropriate fertilizer. Orchid fertilizers tend to be real low dose compared to other general purpose fertilizers, so maybe that's why it works for this. You're not overfeeding it, but it seems to be happy. And that's all I got for you today, guys. So if you like ant plants, or if you think that we should try other ant plants out there, drop a suggestion below. Here we have Hydnophytum moseleyanum, now repotted. Alright guys, hope y'all enjoyed that video. And we appreciate you watching, and we'll see you in the next one, guys. Alright, thanks.